Happy Christmas, Laura. Happy Christmas, Laura. What are you wearing?
I am not new to fandom culture. My family ensured from a young age that I have extensive knowledge of some of the most important epic stories of all time. From Harry Potter to Star Wars to Lord of the Rings, my parents were not ones to censor much. Because of this interest in fandoms and fan culture, I have spent a lot of time on the internet consuming fan made content, including fan art and fan fiction. Let's back up for a second because I realize that there are some of you who do not know what a fandom is and therefore do not know what the hell I'm talking about. Let's see what dictionary.com has to say about it. Okay, not bad, but not great. So let's see what Urban Dictionary says. Okay, better. And there they are, fan fiction and fan art. Let us allow Urban Dictionary to define fan art. Art of any form, usually electronic or drawn freehand, that uses characters or settings from a popular television show, novel, cartoon, anime, or movie as the subject. And fan fiction, when someone takes either the story or characters or both of a certain piece of work, whether it be a novel, TV show, movie, etc., and create their own story based on it. Hopefully these definitions are self-explanatory, but let me give you a little more background on fanfiction. There are three main fanfiction sites: fanfiction.net, Wattpad, and Archive of Our Own, aka AO3. Each are unique and similar in different ways. However, the main distinction is that Wattpad features a large amount of original stories and has terrible organization when compared to fanfiction.net and AO3's many filters. Of course, we can't talk about fan culture without mentioning the most famous location for fan interaction and distribution of content: Tumblr. Tumblr is the epicenter of fan culture. It is filled with fan fiction, fan art, headcanons, and of course, fans, all of which have identities, issues, and cultures that affect the content that they produce. From Tumblr, not only has fan culture, but also communities of fans been created. They hold each other accountable, go to war with one another, and explore their shared love of characters and stories with one another. Now that we have a more basic understanding of fan culture, I would now like to introduce the issue that I would like to explore in this video essay: sex. More specifically, the sexualization of characters that do not canonically have sex in whatever body of work they are from. As you likely can tell from some of the images seen in this video, the main goal of fan content, such as fan art and fan fiction, is to place characters in relationships and situations that they otherwise would not be in. These relationships are called ships, and they frequently become the subjects of internet porn, some of which actually makes it into the mainstream media. Some famous examples are the 50 Shades of Grey books and movies, which started out as Twilight fan fiction, and the After books and movies that were originally Harry Styles fan fictions on Wattpad. I think it's safe to say that sex and sexualization is a big part of fan culture, so it makes sense that it can become a point of contention between fans on the internet. The example of this type of conflict that I would like to use to talk about this sexualization is one that came up on my TikTok back in May 2021. During this time, and a little before then, the TikTok artist at Savvy Sammy went viral for her series of fan art pieces where she drew several of the Harry Potter characters with what tattoos she thought they would have if they existed. This type of fan art has been popular for several years, with trends like punk/emo edits on Tumblr. Because of the success of her first series using the Harry Potter characters, Savvy Sammy went on to create a new series of fan art pieces using the Percy Jackson and Heroes of Olympus series characters with tattoos. I had been following Savvy Sammy for a while when one of the other accounts that I followed because of her Percy Jackson content at the Graceless made a series of TikToks talking about how Savvy Sammy was sexualizing minors with her artwork by drawing the characters shirtless or in sexual poses.
Comments about me aging these characters up to sexualize them are false, out of line, and inappropriate.
She tries to misrepresent the situation by saying that she aged them up so they could have tattoos, even though canonically some of them have tattoos while they're minors. Here is where we all took issue. There's so many poses you could have drawn Leo in. Literally any other pose where he's not grabbing his front of his pants, we'll say. And again, absolutely no need to talk about Cedric quote-unquote packing. Leo is 16 in canon, Cedric is 17. Cedric dies at 17. And it only gets worse from here on out, so buckle up.
Grace goes on to argue that you can't simply age up characters in order to sexualize them, to which I call bullshit. Full stop. Here's why. As fans grow up, so do their perceptions of their favorite fictional characters. My crush on Percy Jackson is not the same as it was when I was 9 years old. Percy grew up and so did I. Just because Rick Riordan never wrote Percy as an adult doesn't mean that I only view him as a child. As soon as fans interact with a piece of fiction, like Percy Jackson or Harry Potter, the characters are no longer restricted to their canon or the original work on which they appear. They can be reimagined and manipulated in as many creative ways as the fans can think of. This isn't to say that all bets are off and fans can do whatever they want without consequence. There are still some basic standards that most creators can agree to, such as not whitewashing characters of color. But in general, if you want to find a piece of art or fan fiction of your favorite character in a specific situation, chances are you can find it. It's important to understand fan culture in this context because of the complexities and the different small things that we unconsciously refer to when talking about situations like this. For example, there's something called an AU, or an alternate universe. This is used a lot when describing fan fictions or fan arts, where you're placing the characters in an alternate universe from the one that they live in. There could be a soulmate AU, where two characters are soulmates and there's some plot point that has to do with that. There are human AUs for characters that are demigods or wizards or superheroes or anything else that has a supernatural power. Similarly, in the case of Savvy Sammy, her characters are in an AU as well, where these characters have tattoos. Her art does not contain the characters in their canon. They contain the characters in her own alternate universe that she created as a fan. We have to understand that as soon as we take them out of that universe, as soon as we manipulate them, we are no longer talking about the original character. We're talking about somebody else's perception, idea of that character. When characters are portrayed in fan fictions in particular, they are usually out of character. They usually make decisions that the character in the canon would otherwise not make. So therefore, how can we expect those characters to then also stay the same age or have the same relationships that they do in their canon? Fan culture has existed for thousands of years. Fans have been creating alternate versions of their favorite stories for as long as those stories have existed. However, the way that we interact with fan culture now is completely different now that we have the internet and places like Tumblr and Instagram and TikTok where people can interact and view content. And I think that, of course, there are instances of sexualization of minors within fandoms and fandom content. And so I think we should focus on that. I think we should deal with that issue. I think we should talk about how we sexualize minors and young people in our fan culture as well. Even though ultimately I don't believe that Savvy Sammy did anything wrong in her production of her fan art, I think the conflict between her and the Graceless really opened my eyes to this conversation about sexualization in fan culture. It's made me rethink all of the fan content that I consume. We do sexualize minors constantly, all the time, and I think we need to talk about it.